also it goes on and on about how beautiful she is, and that's quite a task when they ask you to do that with Keira Knightley from Busy, who's the plain one. And I wanted, if she was supposed to be beautiful, it wasn't going to be in a vain way or a contrived way. She had to be a very natural girl who's just at ease in her own time. And I think when I met Keira and we started to sort of look at this sisterly relationship, we thought maybe there can be a bit more edge in this than is initially thought of. You know, that it's not all about, we didn't want to do something that was all about brushing each other's hair and doing up each other's corsets, and, you know, we wanted, if they were going to be intimate with each other, then it's because they talk to each other and they really, you know, share things, and also perhaps that they grow apart a little bit during the film, as each sort of goes off on their own journey and starts to withhold information and have secrets, which I think is a very, I think it often happens with very girlfriends, you know, when men come into the equation for the first time.
It's also critical of her own writing. And Keira, I think I read something where you read or understood that Jane Austen felt that maybe Lizzie was a little bit too light, and I think you wanted to approach it in a more realistic way.
It was one of the first conversations I had with Joe, and he said she wrote a letter to her sister, and I'm not going to be able to quote it correctly, but it basically said that her one she was very happy with the book, but her one criticism was that she wished she'd put more shade in it. We thought, oh, that's great, that means that we've got something to play with that. I mean, personally, I'm a big Jane Austen fan, and I think the reason that it's lasted for as long as it has is because the characters are hugely flawed. They're not perfect. They're various different shades of grey, and I think that that's actually the imperfections in a character that make it perfect. And that's why I love them. You know, you can always see yourself as the characters. And that's what's beautiful about them.
Very good. There's a question over here.
Kate from O's Moving Pictures magazine. My question is actually for the members of the family, because the center of the story is really this family and how close they are and the situation they find themselves in. And I'm wondering if you actually did anything to create those bonds, and especially the two sisters, because it was such a close relationship and they're in it together. So in rehearsal, did you rehearse? Did you go out together? You know, anything like that to kind of form those bonds before you were on the camera?
All of those things, really. We did rehearse. We had a 3-week rehearsal period before we started, and a lot of that time was spent with the family, kind of just getting to know each other, talking, all the rest of it. The film was shot on location, so we spent one day where we all went down to Groombridge that we used as Longbourn, and we played sardines. Do you know what sardines?
Hide and seek.
It's hide and seek, but when you find the person that's hidden, you have to hide with them. So it means that everybody ends up cramped in one hiding place. And it was brilliant. I mean, that and dance rehearsals, we were a family in about a matter of a week. Yeah.
Is that what Judi Dench was doing? Was she playing sardines?
No, she wasn't allowed to. It was only the family, only the girls, and Tom Hollander, who claimed it was the happiest day of his life.
He's quite fun. There's a question here. Thank you.
Actually, yes, it's a fairly different question, but I know that in the book especially Austen really takes a look at, and a very clear look at, the levels in the class system and the impact that that has on the family and different people in the characters, obviously from Darcy right through the family. And I'm wondering how much that informed your interpretation of Pride and Prejudice and also prepping for the characters, because obviously class has a huge impact on each character and how they interact and the entire story. She's very clear about
that. The class structure is still at work in England, unfortunately, but it's not something that we talk about. It's just there. It's a kind of unwritten thing, I think. And so I didn't want to have the characters talking about who's of what class constantly. It's just something that people, it's a structure that people live within, and it expresses itself in the day-to-day mechanics of social communication. And so when Brenda's character, Mrs. Bennet, goes around to see Bingley, they're very uptight and they stick very together because they're daunted by Mr. Bingley's class. So it informs the actions of every scene and every moment, but without being discussed overtly, because they wouldn't have. You know, there are certain things that you just accept.
And so you didn't necessarily discuss it as a cast or in preparation.
I think it's terribly clear in the book. I mean, and pretty much as soon as you read it, you do understand exactly what's going on. I think in this version we've actually in a funny kind of way, made it more clear than in some other versions because of the costumes, as a really obvious thing. But, you know, you've got your Caroline Bingleys who are so fashionable, and the clothes are completely perfect and the hair is completely perfect, whereas the Bennett girls have a slightly scruffier look, you know, and it is that idea that they've made the clothes themselves. They've had to do their own hair, so it's as good as they can do it, but it's not great, you know. And I think that automatically shifts everything a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think